A single movie changed the way the world looked at love. Stories in the 90s. Pretty Woman wasn't just another romantic comedy. It was a cultural event that made Julia Roberts a household name and gave us one of the most unforgettable love stories in cinema history. Now, decades later, Pretty Woman 2, 2025, has arrived, and it doesn't just pick up where the fairy tale left off. It dares to rewrite what happily ever after really means. When Pretty Woman first hit theaters in 1990, it wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. People fell in love with Vivian Ward, the fiery, witty, yet vulnerable woman played by Julia Roberts and Edward Lewis, the charming but emotionally closed-off businessman played by Richard Gere. Their story was more than romance. It was about transformation, risk, and learning that love can break down walls money and power cannot. The film made Julia Roberts the queen of romantic comedies and created a legacy that lasted more than 3 decades. Fast forward to 2025, audiences around the world had long debated whether Pretty Woman should ever get a sequel. For years, Roberts herself avoided returning to Vivian's role, saying she feared tarnishing the magic of the original. That is why Pretty Woman 2 is such a shocking comeback. Julia Roberts finally said yes. And not only did she say yes, she shaped the story herself, making sure the character of Vivian would be reintroduced in a way that speaks to modern audiences, especially women who grew up watching her. So, what makes Pretty Woman 2 different from other long-delayed sequels? It doesn't try to recreate the same fairy tale from 1990, instead it acknowledges the passage of time. Vivian is no longer the young woman needing rescue. She is now a woman who has lived a full life, with triumphs and struggles of her own. This is not the story of a damsel waiting for her prince, but the story of a woman who understands her worth, her independence, and her voice in a world that has changed. The film wastes no time reminding viewers of why we loved Vivian in the first place. Julia Roberts slips back into the role effortlessly, but this Vivian has more depth, wisdom, and emotional power. The first film gave us a fantasy, but the sequel explores reality. What happens after the happily ever after? Did Edward and Vivian stay together? Did Vivian's life really transform into a fairy tale forever? These questions haunted fans for decades, and Pretty Woman 2 finally answers them in surprising ways from the very beginning. The movie sets the tone that this isn't about recreating the old magic, but about finding new meaning. The filmmakers made bold choices, blending nostalgia with modern storytelling. The iconic Beverly Hills setting is still there, but Vivian's journey is no longer about proving herself to wealthy strangers or breaking into a world that rejected her. Instead, she is established, powerful, and respected in her own right. She is no longer the pretty woman being judged. She is a voice, a mentor, and someone who has her own empire. This setup isn't just about Vivian's personal journey. It's also about Julia Roberts herself. This comeback is more than a film role. It's a statement about resilience, longevity, and relevance in an industry that often sidelines women after a certain age. Roberts demanded that the sequel reflect that truth, and it shows. The movie allows Vivian to be older, wiser, and still magnetic. It challenges the idea that only youth defines beauty or romance, and it shows audiences that love, power, and self-discovery can happen at any age. But here's where the film really surprises its audience. It doesn't simply bring back Edward and Vivian as if no time has passed. It carefully unpacks the question of what relationships look like after 30 years. Not every fairy tale is perfect forever, and the movie doesn't shy away from that reality. Instead, it redefines what forever means, not always about being together, but about the lasting impact people have on each other's lives. This is where the setup of Pretty Woman 2 pulls you in. It makes you nostalgic for the past while preparing you for a completely different kind of story. As audiences watch the opening acts, it becomes clear that this isn't just a love story. It's a reflection of how much culture has changed since 1990. The questions of independence, respect, power dynamics, and identity are now front and center. And through all of this, Julia Roberts' Vivian stands as the emotional anchor, reminding us why her character was unforgettable then and why she matters even more today. **The Heart of Pretty Woman 2, 2025, lies in its ability to balance nostalgia with reinvention. Right from the opening, audiences are reminded of Vivian Ward's unforgettable charm. But instead of a wide-eyed dreamer trying to break free from her old life, we see a woman who has already carved out her own future. Vivian has become a successful businesswoman, running a foundation that helps young women escape the kinds of struggles she once faced. It's poetic and deeply satisfying. The woman who once needed a chance now gives others the same opportunity. The movie begins by showing us glimpses of Vivian's life in Los Angeles. She's powerful, confident, but not untouchable. Her foundation brings her admiration, but it also brings challenges, pushback from corporations, criticism from the media, and the constant question of whether she can hold her ground in a world still dominated by men with money and power. This new Vivian doesn't need saving, but that doesn't mean she's without struggles. The film makes it clear, empowerment doesn't mean life gets easy. It means you learn to face battles differently. Edward Lewis, played once again by Richard Gere, is woven into this narrative with care. The movie does not pretend their love story was perfect for 3 decades. Instead, it acknowledges what many fans quietly wondered. Did Vivian and Edward's differences eventually catch up with them? The answer is complicated. Edward is still present in Vivian's life, but not in the way audiences might expect. Their relationship became less about romance and more about mutual respect. The two of them walked different paths, but their bond remains, a bittersweet reminder that sometimes love evolves into something beyond passion. This is where the film subverts expectations. Instead of clinging to the old fairy tale, Pretty Woman 2 dares to suggest that Vivian's true story isn't about being someone's partner, but about finding herself. Julia Roberts delivers one of her strongest performances here. Her Vivian is layered, vulnerable, and yet undeniably strong. She laughs at her past mistakes, embraces her imperfections, and shows a depth that only comes with age and experience. Midway through the film, a new character enters, a younger businessman who mirrors Edward's old ruthlessness. He sees Vivian's foundation as a threat to his empire. But instead of falling into the old pattern of power imbalance, Vivian refuses to play the role of the woman who needs validation from a man. The film cleverly uses this new antagonist to show just how far Vivian has come. She outsmarts him, challenges him, and proves that she no longer needs anyone to rescue her. And then comes the emotional core, the ending. After years of being defined by her relationship with Edward, Vivian finally writes her own ending. In the final act, she delivers a speech at a fundraising gala reflecting on her past. She openly acknowledges how far she has come from the days of standing outside Rodeo Drive stores, being judged by clerks who thought she didn't belong. The camera lingers on Julia Roberts' face as she declares that no woman should ever feel she isn't enough. It's not just Vivian speaking, it feels like Roberts herself speaking to her fans. Reclaiming the narrative of her career, their climax isn't a wedding, a kiss, or a glass slipper moment. It's something stronger. Vivian standing alone on stage, applauded not for her beauty, but for her voice, her courage, and her strength. Edward is there smiling proudly from the crowd, but the focus isn't on their reunion. The message is clear. Pretty Woman 2 isn't about who Vivian ends up with. It's about who Vivian has become. The film ends with a subtle nod to the original. As Vivian leaves the gala, she passes by a street performer singing a modern version of Pretty Woman. She pauses, laughs softly, and walks away confidently into the night, not toward a prince, but toward her own future. It's a poetic reversal of the first film's ending. In 1990, Edward climbed the fire escape to rescue her. In 2025, Vivian rescues herself. This bold ending stirred conversations across audiences. Some were surprised that the sequel didn't give a traditional romantic closure, but many celebrated it as a powerful modern twist. It answered the lingering "what happened next" question with honesty. Vivian didn't just find happiness in love, she found it in herself. By the time the credits roll, the audience realizes that Pretty Woman 2 isn't just a sequel. It's a statement. It redefines what a happy ending means, especially for women who grew up watching the first movie. Vivian's story is no longer about being chosen. It's about choosing herself. Asterisk. Every great movie carries its story beyond the screen, and Pretty Woman 2, 2025 is no different. The film's magic doesn't only live in the plot, it lives in the untold decisions, challenges, and surprises that shaped its creation. To understand the full weight of Julia Roberts' comeback, you have to step behind the curtain. The first secret is perhaps the most powerful. Julia Roberts didn't just sign on as an actress, she influenced the very heartbeat of the script. For years, Hollywood studios pitched sequels and spin-offs to Pretty Woman, but Roberts turned them all down. She was protective of Vivian's story, insisting that a sequel had to mean more than nostalgia. When she finally said yes, it was under one condition. Vivian would no longer be written as a woman defined by her relationship, but as someone whose journey reflects resilience and independence. In many ways, Julia wasn't just playing Vivian again, she was rewriting her legacy. Another fascinating detail lies in the casting process. Richard Gere's return was kept secret for months. Early reports hinted that Gere might not be involved at all, leaving fans worried that Edward's absence would weaken the sequel. What the filmmakers did instead was brilliant. They used this uncertainty as part of the film's marketing strategy. When Gere finally appeared on screen in the first official trailer, audiences erupted online. The surprise reteaming of Roberts and Gere gave fans exactly the kind of goosebump moment the studio was hoping for, but Gere's role wasn't the only surprise. The sequel introduces subtle cameos that eagle-eyed fans were quick to spot. The hotel manager from the original film, played by Hector Elizondo, appears in a short but emotional scene, this time as a board member helping Vivian's foundation. His warm smile and fatherly tone serve as a gentle callback to the supportive figure he once played in her life. Even the shopkeeper who once turned Vivian away on Rodeo Drive makes a blink-and-you-miss-it appearance, symbolizing how Vivian's journey has come full circle. Then there are the Easter eggs woven throughout the movie. The famous Big Mistake shopping scene from 1990 is subtly mirrored in a modern twist. A young woman supported by Vivian's foundation walks into a luxury store and is dismissed by staff, only to return later with Vivian herself, standing tall and commanding respect. It's not just fan service, it's a statement about progress, showing how Vivian uses her past pain to empower others. Another Easter egg lies in the music. At one point, Vivian drives through Beverly Hills with a soft instrumental version of Roy Orbison's Oh, Pretty Woman, playing faintly in the background, almost like a ghost of her past life following her forward. Behind the camera, there were equally bold decisions. The director, a woman known for crafting strong female-led dramas, fought hard to avoid making the film a glossy rom-com repeat. She pushed for a tone that was both romantic and socially conscious, blending heart with grit. According to production insiders, Julia Roberts backed this vision completely, using her star power to protect the film from studio executives who wanted a safer, more predictable love story. It's rare for an actor to wield that kind of influence in Hollywood, but Roberts knew the stakes. She wasn't just returning for herself, she was returning to prove that sequels can evolve. Not just recycle, even the costumes carried secrets. Roberts worked closely with the costume team to ensure Vivian's wardrobe reflected her growth. Gone are the flashy outfits of her younger years. Instead, we see sleek, powerful designs, elegant suits, modern dresses, and subtle nods to her iconic red gown from the opera scene in the first film. In one key moment, Vivian attends a gala wearing a gown that mirrors that famous dress, but in a darker, bolder shade, symbolizing how she's embraced her past while stepping into a stronger, more complex future. Filming wasn't without challenges. Production faced delays due to Roberts' insistence on script rewrites, and at one point the studio nearly pulled the plug. But those rewrites are exactly what gave Pretty Woman 2 its emotional depth. Rather than a quick cash grab sequel, the movie became a passion project for its leading star. Julia Roberts was not just acting, she was ensuring. The story honored the millions of women who saw themselves in Vivian back in 1990. The result of all these behind-the-scenes choices is a film that feels layered, intentional, and deeply respectful of its legacy. The secrets hidden within its creation reveal a truth that audiences sensed while watching. Pretty Woman 2 isn't just a sequel, it's a reclamation. Every Easter egg, every cameo, every rewritten scene was designed to tell fans, this story still matters. And Vivian's voice is louder than ever. Asterisk, when the credits roll on Pretty Woman 2, 2025, the film leaves audiences with more than nostalgia. It leaves them with a question. What does it mean to come back? And what does it mean to matter in a world that constantly moves on? For Julia Roberts, this movie is not just about reprising Vivian Ward, it's about rewriting what it means to age, evolve, and remain powerful in Hollywood. For decades, Roberts symbolized the classic leading lady, the sparkling smile, the effortless charm, the queen of romantic comedies. Yet, in recent years, she stepped away from the spotlight, choosing smaller roles, family time, and personal projects over the relentless cycle of blockbusters. Many critics assumed her era had quietly ended, but Pretty Woman 2 proved them wrong. This wasn't just a return, it was a resurgence. One of the most striking impacts of the sequel is how it reshapes the way audiences think about legacy. The first film left Vivian frozen in time, forever remembered as the Cinderella of Rodeo Drive. The sequel breaks that glass slipper, reminding viewers that life doesn't end after happily ever after. It shows that women, in particular, can carry their stories beyond the fairy tale. Vivian isn't remembered now only for being rescued. She's remembered for rescuing herself. That message hit hard with audiences, especially women who grew up with the first film and now see themselves in the challenges of middle age, independence, and self-discovery. Culturally, the film sparked conversations that go beyond cinema. Social media lit up with discussions about how rarely Hollywood allows women over 50 to headline a romantic drama, let alone a sequel to an iconic hit. Fans praised Roberts for demanding that Vivian's story be one of empowerment rather than dependence. Even critics who were skeptical of a sequel admitted that the film managed to walk the difficult line of honoring the past while challenging outdated narratives. For Julia Roberts, this comeback was more than personal triumph. It was a statement against Hollywood's obsession with youth. She proved that charisma, magnetism, and storytelling power don't fade with age. If anything, they deepen. Her performance in Pretty Woman 2 is layered with wisdom that simply wasn't possible in 1990, and by embracing that, instead of trying to recreate her younger self, Roberts showed that reinvention is more powerful than repetition. The impact also extends to her career trajectory. Industry insiders note that Roberts' performance has already opened doors for more mature roles written with depth and complexity. Studios are reconsidering their assumptions about what audiences want. The success of this film proves people aren't only looking for fresh young faces, they're looking for stories that feel real, authentic, and reflective of their own lives. Roberts, once the ultimate symbol of Hollywood glamour, has become the face of a new kind of resilience. On a fan level, the legacy is emotional. Many viewers return to theaters not just to see Vivian again, but to reconnect with their own pasts. Watching Roberts step back into the role felt like meeting an old friend after decades apart. There's something profoundly moving about seeing a character you loved as a young person and realizing she has grown just as you have. That connection between audience and story is rare. And Pretty Woman 2 tapped into it with elegance. And then there's the broader message. At its core, the film says this: you don't have to be defined by where you started. Vivian's transformation from outsider to powerhouse is timeless, but in 2025, it carries new weight. It's a reminder that self-worth doesn't come from being chosen by someone else. It comes from choosing yourself again and again, no matter the stage of life. As the final shot of Vivian walking confidently into the night lingers in memory, it becomes clear that this isn't just Julia Roberts' comeback. It's a reminder that stories evolve, people evolve, and icons evolve. Pretty Woman 2 doesn't erase the magic of the first film, it expands it, proving that happy endings aren't about perfection. They're about growth, survival, and the courage to keep writing your own story. In the end, Julia Roberts didn't just return to Hollywood. She returned to remind the world why she mattered in the first place, and why she still does. That is the true legacy of Pretty Woman 2. Not just a sequel, not just a comeback, but a powerful declaration that some stars never fade. They only shine brighter with time.